You're listening to Biz Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona Lewis, and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Biz Souls. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler, and we get to the heart and soul of business and the people that make it happen. And William Welser is making it happen. We're having her back real quick because we so enjoyed the last conversation.
We did. So let me read your bio again for those of you who didn't see the first time, which was what, May?
What? No, not only did they see it, Rona, they probably memorized it, you know?
That's why they're back. Okay. Passionate, curious, and creative technologist motivated by tackling and communicating complex problems using storytelling, and we're going to get back to that in a minute, context, multidisciplinary teams of experts, and state-of-the-art methods and technologies. His strengths include future casting or horizon scanning, designing research and products, navigating and making sense of policy environments. Boy, could we use you now. Analyzing complex systems, prototyping hardware, more storytelling, building high-performing teams, assessing talent while honoring the value of diversity and client relationship management. He has expertise and experience working across disciplinary boundaries and business sectors to recognize patterns, sparking value-amplifying ideas, developing fresh use cases for technologies, inspiring and motivating colleagues, and generating visions for the future that are big, bold, and fearless.
And
so what the heck did I just say, William?
Who is that human?
Who is that?
Who did you just describe?
Well, and Bill, you got
what I just said.
Bill, you got a new book coming out, The Story Factor. So we want to talk about that. The story economy. We want to talk about that a little later.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So you deal a lot with, well, Jeffrey, we shouldn't start with, we already asked that.
Well, I still get the first question. It's not going to be the same one as before. You know?
All right, fine.
Look, what we talked about last time, I was really fascinated with the discussion on AI in the future and what's going to happen. So, I don't know. I mean, I've got a colleague that was terribly afraid of AI. AI is going to take over the world, and we're enter the matrix where we become batteries, which would probably be better than lithium batteries, more environmentally sound. Except, who knows? Anyway, what do you think?
So I used to start my talks with, there are 3 words: killer, sentient, robots, that go through people's minds when they think about AI. And that really...
Which should be the name of your next book.
So it actually was the name of this book. It has it in there.
Okay.
We'll get to that later. But I used to start that way because people aggrandize where AI is going. We're going to be made AI's pets. We're going to be, put in a space where we can't do anything on our own anymore. AI is doing it all for us. And I think that's led by fear. That's led by this idea of really a downside risk perspective of threat. Like, what am I going to do because this new thing, this thing that is invisible to me, it kind of just happens in the background. It's like intractable to most people. What am I going to do when that, comes for my job or whatever it might be? And I would just suggest that people maybe turn that around and say, okay, how can I use this as a tool to make myself better? As an example, if you are someone who has never touched a line of code, there are so many tools out there right now that can help you build not an app, but like build something that helps you be more efficient in your day-to-day life, whether that's from financials of your household or managing your calendar, whatever it might be. And you can say, hey, I want this kind of tool, and there are systems out there that will help you make it. And so that for me is like, it's an opportunity thing. It's not a threat thing. And I would just like to see people balance that a little bit. I am by no means suggesting that AI doesn't pose threats. It absolutely does, but we can't hyper focus on that.
Well, and it gets it. I think it gets to the discussion of it's AI is a tool. It's a powerful tool. It's a tool like none we've ever seen before, and how you use the tool. Like for example, the internet when it was coming online, the group that was pushing video and all that, and high storage space online was the porn industry. They're the ones that really pushed ahead with the video. And so people go, oh, the porn industry is bad. They were just trying to use the tool. And thank
goodness. How do you
know
that, Jeffrey?
because I was pretty new on the internet or pretty, I was on the internet when it was pretty new itself. And so I was tracking what was going on and all the news articles about it. I was fascinated with it. And there are reasons to be afraid of the tool. I mean, for example, now you could, because of AI, you can get 100 drones together. And because of AI, you can, for like, $12, you can put a drop unit on any over-the-counter drone, and then you can have it drop something. Now, what it drops is what's frightening. If it's dropping medicine, that's great. If it's not dropping, so it's how you use the medicine.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's like any new tool or something that can help humanity. Nuclear power. We can light up an entire city, or we can destroy an entire city. Using a bomb. So it's.
Yes.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
That's right.
Depends on which one.
Every tool that we've ever had has a good side and a bad side to it, right? I like to say the first tool that I think humans had was a rock.
Right.
Right. Because it really hurt to knock out prey with your fist. Right. And so, yeah, you can use it to knock out prey. You can use it to
hurt somebody.
Spark fire. You can use it for lots of good things, or you can kill someone with it.
Right.
Right. Like, so it's a very simple way of thinking about a dual use of technology. Just as it gets more complicated, as technologies and tools get more complicated, the bad sides, they get more complicated too. But if we ignore the good aspects, there's so much good that can be done. And that's just where we need to keep ourselves accountable.
Right. And I think some of the fear comes from the output you get from AI currently, because sometimes it seems to be right on, almost intuitive, like it understands you. And then other times it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, so where'd you get this information? Where'd you make this up from?
So I've been using AI for a project, and on the project, there's a lot of repetitive stuff with different subject matter. And so I've got to go through this thing, and it will change how it provides the answers. It'll change the formatting from, okay, one time it'll put the information on the screen. Another time it'll give me a document to put it on. And it's almost like, and so then I was playing around with it, give it the same, what's the command that I give it? And does that change it? Is there a slight thing from and it seems to be experimenting on its own. And so when I look at that, I'm going, this thing is, it has a mind of its own.
It learns. It self-learns, right? I don't know if that's the right.
Yeah, I mean, so I define an AI system as having three characteristics. So one, it's autonomous. Two, it learns. And three, it's non-biologic, which means we made it, we set the conditions for it, et cetera. It's really interesting, your experience with it kind of giving you back answers in different formats and whatnot. This is one of the challenges right now with this broad use of large language models. So ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, and we have to remember what they are. They are these compilations of all the information that they've been fed. And then they take your prompt, they take your question, and they try to answer it in the best way possible. And that may be, can you rewrite this sentence for me? It may be, could you write a paper for me? It may be, can you please help me with this code? I keep getting bugs that are popping up, but it is limited to those things that it has been fed.
Right.
And a lot of times those things that it's been fed might not actually be entirely accurate. It might the reason it might be changing the format is because maybe you're not reinforcing that you like the other format. Maybe it's not picking that up, and it's looking, each time it's going back and it's varying on its own, because that's just what it does.
I get, if I ask it a question sometimes, not all the time, it will ask me, it'll give me an A, B, which answer do you like better? And which format, and ask me to pick.
And in some cases, if you're writing, if you're, again, writing an email to somebody, that's beautiful, right? But if it's something a little bit more existential, like, do I take this medicine or this medicine, and which side effects, like, that's terrifying.
Yes, absolutely.
And
no, mine was much more innocuous than that. Thank God.
And William, I think you're right, because I've been going through this stuff as a process, trying to get through it quickly, and I haven't been given it the feedback. Oh, I like this format, so I'm going to try that and experiment with that. And it's funny, and I can tell, like with ChatGPT, I'm on the the user plan, so I'm paying for it, and it still has limits. And it says, hey, do you want to go to the pro plan now? So it's expensive stuff to do, and I'm just grateful that there are companies and organizations that are willing to invest in that. I guess, though, the thing is, one of the things is, the idea of a nerd back in the 70s and the 80s was they were a little isolated, a little antisocial, a little everything else. I imagine those are the people doing most of the programming, the large language programming for AI now. Do you think we should? Do you think maybe the lack of social skills, if you want to generalize, and I'm not, if you want lack of social skills or social intelligence, it might be warping it a little bit? I mean, for the programming, do we need to get somebody else who's maybe a little better at social skills? And I'm not great at it either.
Yeah, I think a few things about this. So first off, the industry kind of has it backwards at this point, because there are all these tools that can help people at least get to like a basic level of proficiency. I really do think that we should be leading with behavioral scientists, leading with people who understand how humans work, how humans communicate, how they best assimilate information, all of that sort of stuff, and then start layering in those details that machine learning experts, software engineers, et cetera, can bring to the table. User experience, also a huge thing, right? Like, how do you make it as lovable and huggable as possible so that people want to keep using it but get value out of it, right? Don't make not so sticky that it's addictive, but instead that it's intuitive, it's easy, it's transparent. And those sorts of things are not the strong suit of a technologist, of a software engineer. And so I do think we have it a little bit backwards. A lot of these large companies have huge teams of behavioral scientists, but they're looking at things after the fact. They're looking at, okay, well, this is how people used it. Okay, let's see how we can adjust it. Or, hey, this isn't sticky enough. Like, how do we, coerce a little bit more stickiness out of this? And so I think that's the first thing that we need to consider, because when you're dealing with a system that is intelligent, right, and autonomous and can learn, you want to make sure that you aren't fooled into this false sense of security that it truly does understand you. Because I can tell you one thing, these LLMs do not understand you. They may play off the fact that they do, but they understand you as deeply as the questions that you're asking and the data that you've provided. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down. Like, the data you've provided kind of disappears into the ether.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things out there that I wish policymakers and really technology leaders, CEOs, et cetera, would bring outward, explain to users, be more transparent, force the discussion around, okay, what does this mean? Where can I trust things? What's exactly happening?
Right.
So yes, we could do better for sure.
So what?
Can I
I'm
can
sorry.
I ask a question?
Yeah, real quick.
Okay.
I've got all these images popping
Evidently
through.
not. Go ahead.
I've got all these images popping through my head. So we got a modern day chicken and the egg problem: behaviorist or large language people. Which should come first? The other thing is, I was thinking of Maxwell Smart and Jaime. Remember, he was a robot.
That was in the 60s, before probably most people.
That's okay. And the problem was he would be sometimes literal on a command for something, and it'd be a complete misapplication of the information he'd been given on it. And yeah. Anyway, so you can ask your questions. I was just running through those.
Thank you so much. So how do we keep the humanism with using AI? I mean, I definitely think there are aspects of being human that AI will never have. Although, as I said off camera, I do always say please and thank you to it, just in case it becomes sentient in the future. I want to make sure that it's on my side, thinking, talking movies and shows. The movie I, Robot with Will Smith, and I want it to be on my side. That being said, I know I don't have to. That's the way I was brought up. My mother taught me well, and I understand that if I don't, it's not going to get pissed off at me or anything like that. And at the same time, I'm working on a project with a friend of mine from England, and it's about HR using AI and how they're afraid of it. They're human resources. But how do you keep the human in all of this?
Right. So I've said a few other times in the past, something that my colleagues probably got tired of, but we couldn't have gone to the moon with just rocket scientists and mathematicians and engineers. We needed nutritionists, we needed psychologists, we needed all these different, and I like to say ists and ologists, right? That would inform these more nuanced aspects of sending a human from the Earth to the moon. And this is the same thing that can overlay beautifully onto the AI space. If you leave it just to the software engineers, if you leave it just to the people who understand, the very detailed technical aspects of how these systems are working, you're missing the point. Because there's all this other expertise out there that will make these systems better, and not better in the sense that it just gives you a better answer, but better in the sense that you can trust the answer. You can understand how it got there. There's lots of stuff in the psychology space where it's trust and confidence building and transparency. Software engineers don't know how to do that. Right. That's not their bailiwick. And by the way, nor should it be. There are people that are totally, good at it and have been trained as experts. It takes a lot of ists and ologists to take something like AI and make it a robust tool that gets us from this kind of everything's possible to, okay, but here are the right ways to use it. Everything's still possible, but here are the guidelines, and here's how you can think about it in a healthy, constructive, useful way.
So the pattern, William, and this is going back to the chicken and the egg analogy. So when microcomputers first came along, I was working with Apple, and the first you had to code in, type in BASIC. And then you had a word processor, and the word processor, you had to put in the coding. You had to put in, capitalize, whatever it was, less than, greater than sign, and put in the capital and mark it that way. And then came WYSIWYG. So, and then came the GUI operating system, where you didn't have to know the coding on things. Is there a way we can avoid this process? Because it seems we're doing the same system, starting off as a technical, so that the behaviors can come in and say, yeah, this is good, we can make it better, we just need to put a new operating face on it, a new GUI interface on AI.
Yeah, I think that we're missing a chunk here though, because it's become far more complicated and complex, the systems that we're dealing with, and we're missing this feedback loop. And the feedback loop really is, if you get on the phone today with customer service line, for an airline or for a hotel, whatever it might be, you may be talking at certain points to an AI without knowing it. Right. This isn't just, I'm not talking about the, give me your user number and you say it out loud and it's like, what I heard was blah, 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 blah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, there are actual great UI agents, or excuse me, AI agents that will interact with you, and you kind of can't tell whether they're a human or not. You should know, right? Because the thing is that you can feed back if we're aware of when we're dealing with these systems, when we're aware of when these systems have perpetuated themselves into our day-to-day life, then we can feed back as to, like, well, that made me feel really weird. Like, I didn't like that. And like, I had to give some personal information that I kind of don't know where it went. And I just feel more comfortable if I had been giving it to a human, like whatever it might be. I'm not going to use that service anymore. People will vote with their feet. And I think that will lead us to this kind of idea of labeling, this idea of, you've got to say when it's AI inside, when you're dealing with AI, those sorts of things. And when you get to that labeling, I mean, it's just like when you go to the grocery store. I mean, you know what you're getting into when you buy a bag of Cheetos, right? Like, you know how different that is than when you buy an apple, right? And so we need to get to that point, and it's that feedback loop of, okay, well, when you've informed the human as best you can, how does their behavior change, et cetera, and then take a bunch of behavioral scientists and say, okay, well, this is what's happening. Now we need to adjust in this way. If we can make it more transparent, we get more confidence. Like, and it's this kind of constant feedback loop.
That's an interesting point you made, because something like this happened yesterday, day before. I was on asking. I had an issue with a company that I'm not going to name because I don't want to get in trouble, and it said, do you want to chat now? And I assumed that it was going to be a human. And after and it did not say, I am a chat box. And it just said, how can I help you? And we went back and forth once or twice, and then it just seemed a little awkward. And I said, are you human or AI? Didn't answer, gave me the exact same answer, or almost the exact same answer that it gave. And then I realized this is AI. And I said, may I speak to a human? And then it put me in touch with one. And I was angry. It's like, let me know, because I will address you differently. So I was a little pissed off with that.
Yeah, I had actually not exact same, but I was dealing with one of my backend systems on our platform went down, and it was because of a vendor. And they don't have phone numbers anymore. I can't pick up the phone and call them. So I'm like, of course, entering it, like, hey, chatting with them. And in the beginning, it was fine. Like, the chat back and forth was fine. And I didn't care if I was dealing with an AI or not at that point, because, like, I was just trying to get to a solution. But I must have said a set of things that snapped it into the artificial Samantha that I was talking to became the real Samantha. And like, it was very, very clear that, like, all the language had changed, all the mannerism of the tone had changed. Like, it was really interesting. And all of a sudden I was then getting, a phone number and email addresses, and this person was actually emailing me. Now, yes, could that be an artificial agent? Probably, but it would be really weird for it to context switch like that. And it was interesting. And it escalated to the point where, like, the human came back into the loop. Man, it would have been nice to not have wasted that first 15 minutes, like, going back and forth with an artificial agent.
So your book, The Story Economy, Yeah.
Yes.
Is it all about AI? Is it or is it about the role humans are going to play in the future? I mean, what's the crux of it?
So it's actually a play on how we might tackle the socioeconomic divide, which, yes, AI can be a part of that. And in 2016, leading up to the election that ended up having Clinton and Trump running against one another, there's a lot of discussion about the socioeconomic divide. There's a lot of discussion about universal income. There's a lot of discussion about the 1% and about redistribution of resources. And really, it was that there's a set of wealth out there, and that wealth is dollars, right? Like, yes, okay, I just said like one of the most obvious things ever. Like, yes, wealth can be created when you accrue dollars. But the way that people were talking about kind of closing or at least maintaining the current state of the socioeconomic divide was redistribution of wealth. So when you might as well call that creating a loser and creating a winner. So if you have the money that's being taken from very, very rich and affluent people and then redistributing it to those who do not have, you have a loser winner situation. If you have, I'm not going to touch the most affluent, and I'm going to kind of let the less affluent, the people who have less kind of like struggle on their own, you've got a winner loser situation. And so the question that I had with some of my that I tackled with some of my colleagues at the time was, how might we create another source of wealth that doesn't directly have dollars associated with it right away? And at the time, again, 2016, I actually don't know that it's changed a ton, but there's also a lot of discussion of separately, what are companies making off of us? What is Google, Meta, Amazon? What do they make off of our data? How much am I worth to them? If I'm worth $1,000 to Google because I use Gmail, like, I'd surely love a little bit of that. I mean, I'm not sure that I want to pay $1,000 for free email, right? Because at that point, it's not free.
Right.
And so our data is worth a ton, but that's just our clicks. What I'm talking about there is just our clicks, our purchasing behaviors, like those sorts of things. It's very surfacey. When you start digging into someone's story, their rich background, everything about them, their community around them, their social structure, what's happening in their head, whether that's subconsciously or consciously, what their values are, what their motivations are, what their expectations of the world are, all of that comes out in story. And if you collect that and start to build a data set that's held at the individual level, all of a sudden you generated a huge source of wealth, because that's very helpful for finding value-based care in the healthcare system, because all of a sudden, whether the care plan that someone's going to give you is actually actionable or is actionable for the patient. Financial advisory, like, I now know if I can share that information with my financial advisor, they can anticipate the life shocks that are coming up and help me navigate prior to instead of afterward. With consumable goods, it surely would be helpful to companies if they knew that, I don't know, you only need to make 1,000 of those dresses instead of 10,000, because it turns out the demand is really in the 1,000 space. And yes, I know that would get rid of like all of the outlet stores. Like, that stinks, I get it. But think about the efficiencies from an inventory standpoint, from a production standpoint. And if you find
just less waste overall.
Yeah. And if you find those efficiencies, like, you can adjust cost. And if you can adjust cost, it means you can actually access these markets that have been pretty inaccessible, which are the lower economic markets. Companies have a really hard time getting there. And so the idea was, and the idea that I just describe in this book is, if you allow someone to collect this information and build it up over time, they end up having this kind of war chest of data about themselves that they can choose to share to get more tailored, more personalized products and services, and that there is a benefit on the other side of the market with the providers of those goods and services. So that's what the book is about.
I want to take that one step further, because there was a comment that RFK Jr. made about him wanting the entire world, the entire United States to have wearables so that they can collect data on them. Isn't that doing the same thing except for a different reason?
So I wear a lot of wearables. I've got 3 on right now. And I'm doing that because my company tests them. And I just collect data on myself because I use myself as a guinea pig. Wearables give you what data? What did I do yesterday? How much did I sleep? What was my sleep like? What was my activity like, et cetera? There is no why data. And it's the why data that's valuable, right? Why was my stress the way it was? Why did I exercise as much as I did? Why did I sleep like I did, even though I didn't exercise at all, or whatever it might be? It gets very complicated. That why data only comes out via descriptive language about the individual. And if you merge those things together, it's extremely, extremely valuable. Now, it's terrifying to me to think about that being merged at the governmental level for individuals, because that's a lot of information to be used to manipulate. But if you can secure it at the individual level, which and I'm not pitching my company, but my company does right now, then you actually have the benefit of having all your stuff in one place, really understanding yourself, and then being able to relay yourself to experts, again, like medical providers, et cetera. And so, I guess it would be helpful if everybody wore a wearable. I mean, but that's just a bunch of what?
Right.
Well, yes, I agree. Anyway, we could go deeper and deeper into this. This, as always, it's just a whole fascinating conversation. And I think we can leave it here. How can people get in touch with you and learn about your company?
Sure. So I'm on most social channels at William Welser, and I'm the 4th, so it's at William Welser IV. I'm also my company is Lotic, LOTIC.ai, and we actually have a demonstration system where people can go and it's blockchain enabled. It's extremely private and secure. You can link off of it from our website and see what I mean by stories informing who you are and what decisions you might want to make.
Well, I think it's a very quickly changing world, and hopefully you and your company can help make it better. So thank you for that. And thanks for explaining all this stuff for those of us who are just getting used to it and are still a little nervous.
Well, I just hope that more people, I mean, if my company succeeds, it's great. I hope my investors aren't listening. If my company doesn't succeed, I'm kind of okay with that, because I just know we need to push the ball along. Right. And I really just want to see more companies getting into this space of taking care of the individual, being focused on the individual. That's very important. And if that happens, I'm going to sleep really, really well at night, because I know we're going in the right direction.
Excellent.
Fantastic. All right.
Excellent.
Well, that is it for us. Thank you to William Welser. I am Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
And this has been Biz Souls. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You've been listening to the Biz Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.